hello, everyone. Excuse me for the nose blow. With the change of season, there's always a nose blow, right? I'm glad to see all of you all. This is Martha Novak. This is a show called Real Talk with Martha Novak. We discuss a variety of things, don't we? All related to awareness and consciousness and enlightenment. I'm so glad to talk with you today. Today is a very, very popular subject. It is creating the life you want. How to do it. What's in the way? And we're going to have quite the talk. Now, why am I giving the show again? Because, a couple of years ago I gave this show. You can find those archive shows, all my archive shows on a variety of subjects on the internet. But the reason that I have it come around again is, I work with a lot of people. I have a private practice that I just adore. I've worked with some of the same people for years and years and years and years. And when I see all of them forgetting something, it's time to talk about it again. So one of the things that I constantly see lately in the chaos of what's going on right now is that we're creating the life. We're creating the life we want. Now, you didn't create COVID. That's not what I'm talking about. I don't know when you'll be listening to these shows because these shows are archived. But we are responsible for what we do with ourselves and what we think and feel and what we create in any environment. You understand? Certainly in the environment influences us. We're not going to go out and expose ourselves to COVID if we don't have to. At least I hope you wouldn't. But you are unlimited in terms of your talents, gifts, and abilities. If you are not using those, that's what the show's about. And if you are using those, that's what the show's about. So stay tuned. We start this show always with prayer. The prayer is just to get us all on the same page, get me nice and centered, because a lot of times, I have a life like you, and I'm running around at the last minute. Sure enough, my husband and I had a technical problem this morning. My mouse did not want to cooperate. Not the little one that squeaks, this one that's connected to the computer, kids. And there's always a technical problem with me. I don't know why. I don't understand it. I'm so glad I have Michael, and because he does understand it. And I go along for the ride. It's terrible the way I do. But you know what? What a wonderful world this is, where all of us have talents to contribute, right? Okay, kids, quick prayer, get us all on the same page, and then I'm going to launch into this in a little different way. By the way, if you want to read more about this is the book to which I'm referring, The Life You Want. It's on my website. My website being Martha Novak, Novak.com. And I hope that you will enjoy this book. I want to put some things on the table. There are 3 subjects in this book. You know what those are? The 3 essential subjects to create the life you want are these. Number 1, know who God is. Know who God is. Number 2 is that we're all in the process, later soon, of something called spiritual surrender. The earlier you can do it in your life, by usually midpoint, the better your life becomes, because that's where you absolutely know that God is all you are. And you start being able to use the energy well. See, this isn't about whether you believe what I say or not. It isn't about whether you believe what I say or not. This is the way energy works in the world. And if you know how to work that energy, you'll do real well for yourselves. Okay? The irony is, we never work the energy well until we open up as human beings to the more spiritual, energetic aspects of ourselves. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Okay? Prayer. Dear God, who is all there is, you who are all we are and all everything is in this world, thank you so much for everything, for our being here today under the banner of knowing you, opening up so that we see, hear, sense, and know what you would have us do about this important subject and all the others too. We ask to be receptive to your word through us and through all things. We say right now and declare we know nothing, for it's the you through us and through all things that has the information and knows it all. So we open ourselves, dear God, to the spiritual state of emptiness where you reside in peace and stillness, that we may be spoken to and that we may heed the things you say to us and act on them and have a wonderful life. We open ourselves to this and say this now in your name, in the name of the Ascended Masters, our love-centered guides and friends, in the name of everybody listening to the show today. And so it is. Amen. Thank you for listening. Hello, Kat. I'm so glad that Oh, and hello, Fred. What a lovely night. Well, a lovely day this morning is already with Kat and Fred on board. Thank you so much for being with us. Okay, let's start. Guys, the number one thing that people forget is that you're creating the life that you have. Now, the interesting thing is so many people don't want to acknowledge that, because then they'd have to acknowledge crap, quite frankly. And then they feel guilty. I created all this crap, and they blame themselves. And, oh, it becomes this big bunch of malarkey. That's our psychology as human beings, ladies and gentlemen, in the egoic child's mind. Of course, you're listening to a show like this today because there's a higher part of you too that is all God, that is all the love-based God, the God of abundance and beneficence, creativity, all right, and much, much more. So you've got this ego child's mind, the part of us that still thinks like a child. And you've got this higher self that propels you to know more about yourself, because there is more. You just don't know what it is yet. And that's what a show like this is about. What's there in you to use, to create with? You see, the ego child's mind was formed when you were about 18 months old. By that time in your life, enough perceived bad things have happened to you, whether it is a violent parent shouting and scaring a tiny, tiny little child, or whether it's just the fact that you are not fed on time here and there because of an emergency in the household. Both of those things are traumatic and wound a little child whose time is now. Up until about 18 months old, all time is now. So whatever happened to you back then, by the way, most of it, of course, long since forgotten, if you remember it all of that, you say to yourself, psychologically, well, this is going to last forever. All time is now, you see. It takes your reaching 18 months old for an ego to develop, and the ego child's mind, the part of you that will be with you throughout your life until you address it, challenge it, and transcend it. That's the part of you that thinks like the child still. It's still worried about your survival. And guys, what I'm about to describe to you in terms of creating the life you want, there's a specific formula we're going to talk about. It's a creative process. It's about improvisation. It's about, looking forward to things. So if those things don't exist in your life, if you're still afraid, if you're looking for the next thwart, if you are worried about your survival in this economic climate or any other, we've got our minds on the wrong things, because you're nothing but a creative resource. And that's where you're going to make your money, you see. That's where you're going to find love. That's where everything exists for you. That's what we're going to find today. That's what we're going to talk about today. That's what we're going to point you in the direction of today. For those of you that have already done work like this, I'm certainly hoping that we'll say some things you haven't heard before. My approach is a little different because what I do for a living is to help everyone transcend their issues and open deeper levels of consciousness and enlightenment. So it's not just about creating. Here's something that I find all the time. When people haven't done spiritual work on themselves, conscious work on themselves, trying to really, open that potential that you are in the highest self, you know what happens? You take this material, people take this material, they take the formula that I'll give you in a few minutes, and they run with it and they start creating things, because it's just energy, right? And then it becomes about the things they're creating and not about themselves as the creator and God. And everything stops. Now, is this something that you ought to vilify yourself about? Absolutely not. This is just something that happens until it doesn't. Do you understand? There's more learning to do. There's more faith to put in to our way of being. Faith. Such an interesting word. We don't even give it much credence until... Thank you so much, Fred. That's so dear, my darling. We don't give faith much credence. Oh, we may in our churches, The interesting thing, I'm delighted that all of us go to church. That's important. Go find that. But you are supposed to believe things and live your life outside of that too, because you're not in church 24/7. That it inspires you is wonderful. I am delighted. But here's a story. Years ago, a darling client came to me whose dad was passing away. And she was very worried about him. And when I was talking about her own faith and his faith and what was going on here, she argued with me at first. She said, "Oh, my father is so spiritual. Don't talk to me about the lack of faith in him and all that." Well, you get to, guys, if you depend on your ego child's mind to save you, which we do in the ego child's mind until we don't, until we grow past knowing that, what happens is that we expect on our deathbed that ego to save us, and death is going to win. It is not going to save us. You see? How important that we instill how things really are. How things really are. So that we're at peace with any kind of transition, because all we're going is to a place with less dense molecules. And the love that we can't even perceive on this earth right now. But it's there. I think it's the energy of God, of the ascended God. And I think it's the real reason we haven't blown ourselves to smithereens by now in all these years. Because that exists, whether we acknowledge it or not, but you all are here to acknowledge it, right? So let's get to work. When I was talking about my friend, the lack of faith appeared in her father by this. He was a very strong Catholic, and he had been a strong Catholic all of his life, and he'd gone to church, and he'd never missed anything, never missed a mass. And yet, when he faced his death, he was terrified. He also lived his life fearful about everything. He was always going to be fired from whatever job he had. He was terrified about that. He always thought he was a bit of an imposter in any position he had ever been in. He worried excessively about his children. He overprotected them. Guys, this doesn't show faith. It shows a lack of faith, no matter who you're talking about, whatever kind of God it is. We have to live in a peaceful place inside of us, and that's what we're trying to get to, knowing how the energy works, knowing who God is as us and as all things. Now, the thing that confuses us about God is God presents two ways according to our understanding. Here is the key phrase, according to our understanding. What determines our understanding? The ego child's mind or the highest self mind. Isn't that interesting? Most people toggle back and forth. We have kind of a leg in each. We sometimes triggered. We go right back to the ego child's mind, even though we're trying to hold on to this spiritual being in physical form. But I'm here to tell you, you can do this. And the world needs you. Everybody in the world is not listening to this show right now, but you are. The world needs you to do this. And that's what we're going to help you with today and what all these shows are about. Okay. So the people in this world, even people that are intermediate and sometimes even moving into the advanced stages of consciousness work, forget that they create their life. They also forget that there are no thwarts. Isn't that shocking? Because we've spent our life blaming other people, blaming the institution, blaming the economy, blaming our jobs, blaming the next door neighbor. Really? What if there is nothing to stop you but you? What if there's nothing to stop you but you? I would find out and excavate all that marvelous creativity in you, because here's the thing. You know, you've heard the expression fixations all your life. Psychology talks about, they're fixated, right? Okay. Here's the interesting thing. What's fixated? Nobody tells you that. I'm here to tell you it's energy. It's energy that's stuck in the past that needs to be released and resolved so you can have it waked up. And there's no process to that. It just automatically does this. It comes into the present and you wake up to the spiritual being you are in physical form. Isn't that something? The more you release that does not find its natural home in the emotional body of you, the more wakes up in the spiritual body of you. You have 4 bodies: mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. Spiritual being the energetic body as well. All the bodies, by the way, are energetic bodies. That's why you live after death. You see? Because everything was energy to begin with. What if you waked up to that now, that everything is energy, and you learn how to do it? What a good life that is. Where is anything to fear? Oh, you can always make it up. We can watch our serial killer shows on television and everything else, and we can get ourselves really spooked out by all the horror movies. None of that, guys, is in your life. You didn't create any of that. It distracts us, this fear, from who we really are on a higher level. And guys, that's all you are. The rest is just malarkey. It's issues based on appearances, because that's what the mind could understand when you were a kid. But is it really true? And that's why when you start doing consciousness work, your brain opens to more, you see? Now, we grow up thinking that something is stopping us, you know? Perhaps it was the belief of our parents, no matter what they said to us. I had a friend years ago who reared a young man. She gave him everything, with low self-esteem, that then turned into narcissism because, and I told her, I mean, she was not a client of mine, but I said, but you've never addressed your own low self-esteem. You know, you can say, you can do it, baby, all you want, but a child learns not necessarily from the words you say, but from how you live your life and what you believe. If you're a parent, real important to work on yourself, not only for you, but for your children, quite frankly, everybody who knows you. Sometimes we believe in thwarts because we don't really know what's going on. And I have a funny story about this. I used to live in New York, right? And sometimes in New York, it is impossible, absolutely impossible, to find a cab at at 5 o'clock, let's say, and when it's pouring down rain. Impossible. Almost impossible. So there are going to be lots of cabs that pass you by, right? Is it impossible? No. Here's the belief that I ask you not only hold about a situation like that, but in your life right now. You're just trying to find the right fit. My husband and I, years ago, were in New York, and it was 5 o'clock, and it was pouring down rain, and we had walked forever, so we were not inclined to walk all the way across town to our hotel, right? Hey, Hope. I'm so glad you're here today. So we put up our hands. A cab stopped. He said, where are you going? We said, all the way across town. He said, but I get off in 20 minutes. I can't do that. And I said, no problem. Have a good day, you know. My husband, who was already very tired, didn't understand, and he got very upset. Put up a hand again. Next cab stopped. Darling Frenchman was driving that cab. He said, where are you going? I said, all the way across town. He said, well, I just got on. Hop in. You want to find the right fit. You want to find the right fit. So let's take all those rejections that you get from business or anything else. First of all, I would ask, if you're interviewing, do you want it? Do you want to work? Number one. Gosh, this is an open job market right now. Do you want to work? And do you want to work at that job? And you got to be honest with yourself, because if you need work, if you need money, let's talk practicality, then you better get yourself in line to learn something about this new field or this job, or that it's temporary, but you will be grateful for it until you can move on and find something you like. Whatever your situation, you have to have the right frame of mind. Find the fit. That's all you're doing. You're finding the fit. I'm a writer. You send it out. All these rejections may come back. You're not, that just means you're not supposed to be with them. Find the fit. There's a fit. If you don't believe there's a fit, write that down. That's a great issue to concentrate on. Because either your mother, your daddy believed it, your whole family believed it, that you're an outsider, that there is no fit, that nothing's going to help you. Guys, if that is what you believe, all the Create the Life You Want and all the books, all the lectures, it's not going to help you until you address that. And there are plenty of people like me out here that will help you address that. Do you understand? Okay. We must stop believing in thwarts. Certainly, doors close. Certainly, they close. Certainly, we get rejection. Certainly, your interview can turn you down. That just means you're not supposed to go there. It doesn't mean. Now, here's the thing, that you are less than. It doesn't mean that something's wrong with you. It doesn't mean that you're an outsider. It doesn't mean that you are always and perpetually wrong, less than. But that's what your ego child's mind does. Do you understand? When you are in the womb, you are receiving chemicals through your mom about everything that happens in life. So those chemicals that come to you that are not pure love, because all you are is undeveloped love in the womb. That's all you are. Okay? Energetically, we're talking about your undeveloped love. What happens is that you don't understand chemicals that are violent or unhappy or something that is not part of the love system. Therefore, you hold on to those things in some way, and when you are born, you start looking around and grabbing hold of experiences that show you and explain what that was. You understand? That's why you see different things than your brothers and sisters. That's why whole families can see things quite differently than they are. Okay, now, excuse me, I'm going to have to say something to the dog. Michael, Tuffle, be quiet. We couldn't find his little thing that we put on him that squirts citronella that says, do not bark, if he does, you know. And for some reason, it is, who knows where. I'll find it. It's just, it wasn't found like that. Okay. We also, now beyond what I just said, must realize that every single thing works for our good. Everything, somebody said this, I don't know who did it, but somebody said, everything works for your good in the end. And if it's not the end, if it's not what you want yet, it's not the end. I'm paraphrasing very badly, but that's the truth. So what we do, because of this fear, because of these things, these stuck energies in our past, because we're looking for these thwarts and these things, we stop there. We go, oh. And subconsciously we say, that's just exactly what my mother thought, my father thought, I think about life. But is it true? Is it true beyond what the ego child's mind thinks is true? I say no, it is not. Life, all of life, guys, is a creative thing. The energy of God is creative. We here at my business have a definition of God, which is God is an infinite and ever expanding set of truths, always in motion. Always in motion. What does that say about fixations, which by the definition are stuck? Huh? It means we should challenge them, get through them, and have the energy come back into the present and use it to ever expand. What an exciting life. And I'll say that that's the life most people want. Now, let's talk about the thing that will help you create your life every single time. You ready? Here's the formula. It's a formula. If you work this formula well, you'll have it. You ready? But let me jump ahead for a second and say this. There's a catch. And that's what I want to talk to you about on this show today, because in spite of this marvelous formula, in spite of this being black and white and only about energy, issues are getting in the way. And we have to address those things to release them. And we're going to be talking about that today in full flower. Okay? But here's the formula. If you did this formula perfectly every time, no problem. Okay? First of all, let me say one thing, and that is this formula is based in realism. In other words, it's based in the highest self, not in the fantasy of the ego child's mind. Everybody fantasizes, guys, some more than others. Okay? Some don't fantasize at all and have quite the dismal life. The fact of the matter is fantasy, its own reward, by the way, you can't create anything out of it, should be used in your art forms. And you're thinking about your business and how to make it more fun and interesting and increase sales, all that's creativity, all that is marvelous. To use fantasy and joy and all sorts of things. But in your life, there's a positive and negative fantasy. If you go into fantasy about, you're going to be married to, God knows, I don't know, Bruce Willis, you're not. And it's just stopping things and stopping the natural flow. And the interesting thing is, sometimes the things you fantasize about are just fantasy. So then what happens is you have a negative fantasy and you're the bottom of a dirty bird cage. Okay? The whole point is to come out of any kind of fantasy and live in reality and find it better than anything. Because, guys, why wouldn't it be better than anything? Oh, thank you so much. You're so dear, Pierre. Thank you so much for tuning in today. God bless you. So, it's extremely important, guys. With all my heart, I say it's extremely important for you to wake up and work on yourself. All right? Because that's what makes this formula work. Come into reality. Find it wonderful, because we all have these ideas about reality from our childhood that it hurts. Why? Because it did in the moment. And if that happened to you before you're 18 months old, you think that's what the rest of your life is like. And you're going to try to avoid pain and anything that hurts like that. And that was the child's mind. I'm not saying that things don't hurt, but I'm saying we have to make our peace with pain, because you know what? It's a signal that we need to look within and find out why we're not what happened to us, why we dropped off some sort of path, what we need to open in the future, what we need to address physically. It's information, guys. If we run away from information, we run away from a big part of God that's trying to tell us how to have a good life, you see? Okay. And all these fears we learned to fear them in our childhood. Perhaps our mothers, our fathers feared them too, our sisters, our brothers, society at large, our churches, whatever. But you're listening to the show today to ask yourself whether you want to take that forward or not. I'm here to tell you, I hope you won't. There's no reason to. Let's talk about the energy that works. Here's the formula to create anything you want. Again, it is a reality-based formula. It is about energy and energy. It's not about emotion. Here it is. Desire. What do I mean by that? Well, what you want. Plus knowingness that lives in expectancy, plus action, equals the manifestation of your desire. Now, I'll explain all this in just a minute, because I want you to understand it inside and out and upside down. I'm going to repeat the formula again. Desire, what you want, desire, plus knowingness that lives in expectancy, plus action, equals the manifestation of what you want. Okay, now let's talk about this formula, and then I want to talk about the things you've got to know about this formula. Now, desire. Guys, all those things in you that you want are God talking to you. Isn't that amazing to know? And yet, then what do we do with that? We say, oh, I want too much. I got a budget. Oh, I want too much. I should be downsizing at my age. Bull. Bull. If God is an infinite and ever-expanding set of truths always in motion, go get what you want. Go get what you want. The desire, your wants, are spiritual things. It's trying to say, go get them. Think larger. Do larger. Create more that benefit you and society. Help the world. Go. Open your creativity. Go get it. Those desires are not there to punish you. They are when you hold the belief you can't have that. And you've heard me lecture in the past that there are only two issues in the world. Hi, Peter. Hi, Aga. Oh, I'm so glad you all are with us today. Thank you so much, dear hearts. You've heard me say there are only two issues in the world. All the issues that we think we have fall under these two things. Are you ready? Number one, you don't care about me. And number two, I never get what I want. If you don't believe me, write those things down and watch your issues that come up. They'll fit in one or both of those categories. You don't care about me. I never get what I want. For us to see this, by the way, and I'm going back to the lecture in just a second, but for us to see this, we have to move past our rational minds, because our emotional body, our emotional mind is not rational. I'll give you an example of that. I have a dear client of mine who is retired now, but he was executive for some big Fortune 1000 companies. And one day he came into our session and he was furious, absolutely furious. He had been cut off in traffic, and granted, it had scared him when this car did that. Let's say it was a blue car, quite frankly, now I don't remember. And he was furious that this car had done that to him, absolutely furious. He spent a half an hour talking about how angry he was and how irresponsible this person was and how terrible, you know. And I said, I understand that it could scare you. I really do. I understand that. I've been scared myself in traffic. But this seems to go beyond that. So let's have you wonder why you really are as upset as you are, why you can't let it go now that you're safe and you're with me and we're all quiet together and we're doing God's work in you. Let's find out what that's about. And he got real quiet. And in a few seconds, since he's been working with me for quite a while, in a few seconds he looked up and he had this light bulb go on over his head. And he said, I know this sounds irrational, but that guy was like my dad, and he didn't care about me. Now, the rational mind says in all of us, he was a total stranger in a car you've never seen before, and this was one incident on the expressway. What's to care about, right? I mean, he didn't know you, you didn't know him. That's only on one level. Because the bottom line is, it was a wonderful trigger. That was what it was about. Him being triggered. So that he could say, there were times my father looked like that. He didn't care about me. So we could get that issue. How do I get the issue? I have a whole system of removing, by the way, energetic stuck points. my team that you can read about on marthanovak.com are all trained in this energetic technique. There are several of them, by the way, energetic techniques we use. Nevertheless, that's an example of you don't care about me that is completely in this world irrational, and yet not irrational. It is rational in the emotional body. It is a stuck point in energy we had to get around. So things like that happen to us, guys. Watch those triggers for you, because there are two things, and don't be dissuaded by the rational mind. Don't you dare say to yourself, that's not rational, because if you do, you're denying part of you and how you feel, and that's part of your intelligence as well. And it's often the key for us to get beyond the child's mind, ultimately, you see. Pretty exciting stuff. Desire plus knowingness that lives in expectancy. Let's just take the knowingness right now. And by the way, what I want to talk with you all about is the knowingness. Here's the weak point, guys, in everybody's search for abundance and creation and putting their arms around the reality of the energy that can create the life you want. Knowingness. Knowingness. What that means is you've asked for it. You really want it. You're in line with your conscious and subconscious minds. Hopefully. See, if your conscious mind is saying, I want it, I want it, I want it, and I want to believe what Martha's saying, and we're going to believe this, and by God, and underneath you're saying, I never got what I want. My family never got what it wanted. You're going to have a problem, because the conscious and the subconscious minds are not in alignment. That's why one does work on oneself, kids, to find and root out, even though you might not know yet, all those things that are not in keeping with your ascended self mind and what it knows and what your conscious mind wants. Do you understand? That's why you do work on yourself. That's one of the reasons. That's the way I started out. I wanted to be a better artist. Selfish, I know. We all start out selfish. At one point it becomes, this is so wonderful, and the spiritual element of me, the spiritual body is getting so much stronger that our emphasis changes. And of course we want all those worldly things. Of course we want to be a great artist or whatever we're in as best as we can be, because that was entrusted to us. That talent, whatever kind of thing it is. But then it becomes really important to be in the energy of flow, of God, of, flow is just the current of God and love and that kind of grace. Now, here's the thing. We talk about faith in the beginning of this show. You don't notice you don't have it until crisis occurs, or until you really want something and you're not getting it. You see? Then, what do? We can beat ourselves up. That's what a lot of people do. A lot of people sit there and just go, I've done all this work. And I'm still not there. Well, guys, none of us will ever be. Why isn't that all right? Why don't we just keep going? Why don't we keep learning and growing and opening ourselves? Why don't we just relax? Get our issues out of the way. Let more of God through. Want what we want? Go get it. Want something else? Go get it. Life is a lot easier than we're making it in the ego child's mind. You see? Now, if you really knew that what you asked for was so, wouldn't you expect grace everywhere? Wouldn't you expect these wonderful things to come in? Either immediately a phone call and you got it, or that you're on this marvelous trajectory to get what you want in some way. In some way. Now here's the thing. You were reared to think how you were going to get something. Your mom, your dad, anybody possibly told you, well, you got to work for it. You have an allowance, but you're not going to get it if you don't work for it. And anything else they tell us. The fact is, in spirit, your job is to be human, to want, and to take the action you are told to take. But how it comes to you, that's the domain of God, of your highest self. And this is not just a God that you are. It's a God that everything is. And when other modalities say you have to be in the energetic vibration of what you want, this is what they're talking about. But nobody can explain it. And I'm not sure I'm doing it real well, but I'm trying. Okay? You have to be in the absolute knowing and the absolute joy of expectancy, because why not be joyful? It's coming to you. It's here energetically. It's just not here in substance yet. But that's ridiculous. It's coming into substance, because it always starts in energy and goes to substance. Everything in the world starts as an idea, doesn't it? Even a rock in the yard's not your idea. Everything was thought of first. But human beings' minds say, I did it. I thought of it. I created this. I wrote this. I painted this. I created this company. I hired this brilliant person. There is no I that isn't God. And if there is, it's an illusion. There is no I. There's the ego child's mind, still God, but the fear-based God, the fear-based energy. The highest energy, the love-based energy, the creative energy, the real potential energy. All God, though. Right? It's just by degree. That's why we're still arguing about God. People say, there is no God. Well, if you are looking for God to be nothing but the fullness of itself, okay, I see your point. But if God is everything, the absence of itself and the fullness of itself, according to your understanding, now we're talking. That's God. So, if that's true, what do we have to do? We have to change our understanding. We have to grow up from the child's idea of God, if we even had one when we were young. We have to learn what this energy really is. You see, I say what this energy really is because even the Bible gives you a hint. Now, I'm not a literalist in terms of the Bible, but I do look at it and think that there are some interesting things in there, wonderful things that we should learn from. One of them is that God said, I am that I am. God didn't say I am who I am. You're the who of God. I am that I am says that God is energy. And you are part of that energy. You're not all that energy. Look at all of life. Isn't this a marvelous, abundant world? Isn't this fabulous? Doesn't nature tell you that if you get out of the way, your prosperity will grow? I do believe that money grows on trees. Look at these leaves. Okay, I'm not saying that the leaves are money. I'm saying that your natural inclination is to expand and grow and for the energy to be ever increasing. And if it is not, you have to look to how you're in the way. So that's absolute knowing that lives in expectancy. If you absolutely know, anything is marvelous. Everything can be expected. Every phone call can be something wonderful. Every email, every time you hear the voice of a friend. However, this is not all about us and what we get. This is about our adding value. If you want that marvelous mix and the energy to be stirred up there, it is about you being your highest self and giving for the right reasons too. It's about you being a full participant in this life, not somebody who sits back and waits for life to happen to them. It is about you getting out there and participating unafraid. Because energy should be given and received and given and received and given and received. It's all a flow. Now, in saying that, we have issues that are, I give too much and never get anything back because I don't expect it because what? I never get what I want. It goes back to that source. So we have to do work on the ego child's mind. What are we really saying here? And not only what are we really saying, but what's down there in the subconscious that we don't know yet? That we don't know yet. Let's go find out. Because nothing is unknowable. The esoteric journey is to find those things, guys. And that's what consciousness studies are, isn't it? Okay, that's knowledge that lives in expectancy, knowingness that lives in expectancy. Action. Action's another weak point in a lot of people for various reasons. Some people don't want to make any effort. Have you noticed? Some people literally, for whatever reasons, and they have good reasons. They have ego child's mind reasons, but there's still good reasons, and they're highly effective because nobody acts when they have these. It can look various ways, that you don't expend energy for yourself, that you always are trying to do things for other people, but if they disappear, you're not worth it. Of course, you are. And you've got to wake up to that, right? You've got to wake up to the fact that the only thing you've got is the resource that you are. It'll see you through no matter who comes and goes in your life. Whether or not anything happens in life. There's nothing that can happen to you if you have you. Oh, you'll grieve, and you'll be sad, and you'll laugh a lot, and you'll invest in other people, and you'll give and take, and life goes on. But nothing can crush you. Yeah, I hear the silliest things sometimes. Oh, that was a soul-crushing experience. Come on. Drama. Oh, we are a little drama-filled society, are we not? We are. Is it true? No, nothing can crush your soul. All it means is you've got some issues in the emotional body that you have not yet explored, and you've got to. Now, God doesn't ask that you relive these things. You don't have to relive anything. Here's what you have to do. You have to be willing to go back and look at it and touch it and get rid of it, just like you clean the room. You can't go in and clean a room and not touch the dirt, guys. Not address that dirt. Come on. But we turn away from it. We lock the door to the room instead of going there and looking at it and exploring it. What happens when you start exploring it is you find you're fascinating. You find how brilliant you are in that ego child's mind, and you had no idea because all of these issues were created subconsciously. What if you release that energy? It comes back to you like this megatron of energy. You bet you can create with that. You have to be willing to act. Now, that can take a lot of forms. I'll say that in this crazy society that we have, we are really told what to do. We often push it aside, thinking it's just an idea of our own. We might have been told before all this COVID thing happened to do our businesses a different way. I think we were already going that direction as a society because more and more talk was building up about working from home, right? Helping the pollution in the world and all that kind of thing. Well, here we are, aren't we? I love hot tea. Of course, it's half cold by now because I haven't been sipping it. But I think that's so important for you to realize. We're told things that we push aside. I think enlightenment, and I have this written in my book somewhere, The Life You Want, that I just showed you. I think that enlightenment isn't the life that most of us lead. It's the life that most of us miss. We're not awake. Hi, LaRonda. Oh, thank you so much, sweetheart. Good to see you. We don't see it. We're so busy trying to hold on to our little lives and survive from the ego child's mind and believing that life is tough and believing that life is a struggle and that we're always on the verge of not getting what we want, or we never get what we want, or nobody loves us, not even us, by the way. Guys, all of that is drama from the ego child's mind, and there are some big old life-enhancing truths beyond all that bull, and you better go find them. And I say you better go find them because this is the esoteric journey. This is what you're supposed to do. There's a silly analogy that I always make, and that is, if you look in the mirror and your hair is a mess, demonstration this morning, by the way, what do? If you look in the mirror and your hair is a mess, you pick up a comb or brush and you fix it, right? Or try to, in my case. That's as easy as it is. However, if this is a analogy for what we're talking about right now, of accepting truth and dealing with it, if we look in the mirror and we see our funny hair, i.e. our issues, we usually do a couple of things. We yell at the mirror or anybody who reminds us that we have them. That's what a trigger is, by the way. Or we say, I'm just not going to look in the mirror anymore, and you walk away. That's avoidance, by the way. Those are two typical ways to deal with what I am putting forth to you. Neither of those ways work. They don't get you what you want. They help you survive and stay where you are. Congratulations. If this is the best your life can be, how's it working out for you? There's more. But you're not going to get it by walking away and not seeing the funny hair in the mirror, or by your standing there yelling at it. You have to pick up the comb. You have to actually do some work on yourself and find out what's in this psyche that's stopping me. Welcome to Esoterica. Fun place to be, by the way, and you can't be afraid of it. That it isn't what your mama and your daddy did. So what? Why isn't that all right? The world would never evolve if we did what mom and dad did and nothing else. Nothing against mom and dad. It's just they had their lives and you have yours. You have to act on what you really are being told. However, when you do this work, I always laugh with my advanced people because they have seen this over and over again. When you first start consciousness work, your ego child's mind screaming at you. It's giving you dreams that are saying, oh, you're on the precipice of great disaster. All it is change, of course. But the ego child's mind, you keep in mind, does send up propaganda from itself to you, saying to be afraid, saying you shouldn't, explore, don't drop the tradition. Guys, there are no enlightened traditionalists, so drop the tradition. But it's sending up propaganda that, if you believe it, if you fear it, is going to stop you. And that's enough, isn't it? That's enough. The fear is enough. I got an email the other day from a darling client of mine who happens to have cancer right now. And she's new to me, so she doesn't know all this yet. And she wrote me a note saying, somebody told me one time, because she has been in spiritual work before and emotional work, but nothing on the level in which we're doing it now. And she said, someone told me that I'm creating, my fear will create these horrible things happening to me, like death. And I'm fearing death. And I said, I don't think that you are bringing in death. I think you are bringing in the decision to live or die, which you have never made. And that's enough to scare you to pieces. But the fact is, we're working hard to hope you'll be here and to make the decision to bring yourself back. So sometimes fear is enough. You don't have to bring in the serial killer. The fear of the serial killer is enough. The fear of the lack of money is enough. Why believe in any word? You're an endless resource of creativity and other things in God that if you learn how to use them, if you learn more, if you are wanting to add value to your own life and to others, you should be all right. So let's talk about some things that I want you to put in place to be able to work that formula well. May we do that? Next week, I'm delighted to go back into my book. I showed it at the beginning of the thing, The Life You Want. There are one of the things that I said in the beginning of this, if you missed the beginning of the show, I want to say again. There are 3 parts to this book. One of them is how to manifest well. Great, super. That's what we're talking about today. The other parts are who God really is, which you got to know, and spiritual surrender, which is what we're talking about. Because the list I'm about to read you are all part of spiritual surrender. Isn't that interesting? So it all goes together. It's not a mistake that I start talking about who God is in the beginning, and then I go into manifestation, and then I go into, you're going to do this better if you spiritually surrender. Okay? Spiritual surrender is not what you think it is, because first of all, surrender has a negative connotation, doesn't it? We saw Robert E. Lee signing the surrender at Appomattox, and oh my God, he looks so sad, and all that. We've lost the football game. Oh my God, that means we're losers. All bull. Spiritual surrender is one of the most powerful things you can possibly do, because what it is you're surrendering who you are. You're saying, I'm not doing any of this myself. I've been trying, and I've been in the way. And you're letting more of God's grace and the love-centered God and the higher vibrations flow through you. You are doing things for the right reasons. The right reasons, by the way, not the egoic right reasons, but the higher self reasons because it's the right thing to do. Here's some things that I want to put on the table. These are kind of obscure things sometimes that we don't talk about. Here's one. For God's sake, dears, acknowledge that you don't know what you don't know. Why isn't that all right? You see, you're going to take something like that in the ego child's mind, and you're going to say, I don't know what I'm lesser because I don't know what I should know this. I've been studying all my life. I should have a different thing. I should know more. Guys, the very fact that occasionally enters your mind is a stuck point. It means you've got some ego still there. The ego child's mind is alive and well. Excuse me for a minute. I got to yell at the dog. Tuffle! Tuffle, stop. Be quiet, and be quiet now. Guys, we're out in the country, and we have squirrels and raccoons and God knows what dancing on the porch right now doing the rumba, and Tuffle just doesn't think they ought to be dancing. So anyway, we love animals. We love them all. I had a raccoon the other day that brought me 2 of her babies. It was very exciting. All right. One of the most spiritual things, and I said this in passing, but I often have my dear clients and friends say to me, and I heard your voice say, why isn't that all right? I'm going to say to you, why isn't that all right? And you can apply it to anything. Why isn't that all right? If indeed we're creating a little jigsaw puzzle and something has hurt you, disappointed you, it's one piece. Why isn't it all right that you're hurt and disappointed if you're going past that into something more wonderful? Why isn't it all right that you learn something here that you can apply to make your life more wonderful? Why isn't everything all right? Why isn't it all right that we've made mistakes if it leads us here and we're talking about not making them anymore and living in a higher place? And are mistakes really mistakes anyway if we learn from them? I don't think so. Isn't this exciting? Isn't it hopeful? Yes. But we can't take that ego forward that says, well, I know everything. For God's sake, don't know everything. You see, in a lot of these programs of spirituality, we get misinformation. I heard one time that somebody said, you should be innocent like a child. Well, should you? I think you ought to be discerning and yet have an open mind. If that is innocence with a lot of discernment put in place, then I'll buy that. Sometimes these words, I think, can be very misleading for us. What we try to do here on this show is give you some precise information. And you catch me if my words are not precise. You can write me on certainly Blog Talk, on Facebook Live and say, I don't understand what you just said. I'm delighted to explain. We laugh in my classes, the classes that I teach. By the way, I teach classes on how to do all this if you're interested. Just contact me through my website. But I get so tickled because people will say, my God, I can't believe we're paying for all this abuse when I challenge them, but sure, that's what we do. Let's challenge you. Let's challenge you in love. God tells us there's something glorious in all of us. Why not? Why isn't it all right? But you see, in psychology, we make good things bad and bad things good. How many times have people shown up for my classes or for my private sessions, and I'll go for the truth, right? And they'll go, oh, you're scolding me. I'm not scolding you. I'm not doing anything like that. I'm just trying to tell you what Spirit's saying to me. And we have this built-in system. Oh, you're making me ill. Really? Really, you're not going to let me get to what really is wrong? You're going to pull that? And of course, they don't. No, they drop it. Let's just go on for it and get rid of it. Let's move beyond the drama. So, number one, acknowledge you don't know what you don't know. I say, why isn't that all right? Don't attack yourself with that. Well, I should know all this. I've studied 50 years. Bull. Obviously, you don't know it, so let's go. Who cares? Does it mean you are less of a person? You're the only one thinking that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Keep your mind on the work. Number two, related subject, sister subject. Don't think you have to know everything. Why would you think you have to know everything? Narcissism. By the way, kids, we're all narcissists until we're not. We're all narcissists. That's what the ego child's mind's made of, all right? Even when you're saying, I don't matter and everybody else matters, that's still narcissism because you're focusing on yourself as a victim and always will. Focus on yourself. And I'm so self-absorbed. That's all part of the narcissistic approach. Don't do that. You know, put it in mind as I say, don't do that every time. I get, I have a client whose last name is Switzer. Great name. And he sent me something I bet you can still find on YouTube, which is a Bob Newhart skit. And he plays a Dr. Switzer, and he's a psychiatrist, right? And this woman comes in, and I can't remember her problem. You know, she's afraid of rabbits or something like that. And he listens to this huge story. He asks a few questions, listens to the huge story. And finally he says, I can fix this. I know exactly what to do. And he stands up and he screams at the top of his voice, stop it! Just stop it! Sometimes I feel like that. I thought it was hilarious. We just laughed and laughed and laughed over that cute thing. Sweeties, I know that it's not as easy as just stop it. What I am saying is there's a path to all of this, and you can eventually put every one of these things down because there's more energy that awakens in your spiritual body when you release it out of the emotional body. Here we are. That's what I'm saying. So you don't have to know everything. You just do not. I don't care how long you've studied. You're never going to know everything, and neither am I. Why? Isn't that all right? It is. So don't play that game. Oh, I should know that already. Well, you don't, so who cares? You know, guys, I'm never lecturing on something that I didn't do myself. I always did. And I remember an acting class I had years ago. And I was working with this really wise woman, and we were doing something, and I don't remember what it was, and I don't even remember whether it was in Atlanta or New York, but anyway, I was taking this class, and it was a very complex character that was working my character. And my character should have been very smart to the game playing and the role playing that this other character was doing, but Martha had not yet evolved to that place where I could recognize it. So I didn't interpret that script that way. I had interpreted it in a very shallow manner. And when this teacher pointed it out, what did I do? Oh, right back into the ego child's mind. Oh, why didn't I see that? I said afterwards, right? And she said, well, you'll never forget it now, will you? And I realized in that moment that I did have the choice to forget it, at which time I wouldn't learn anything. And if I kept beating myself up, I would not remember this. I'd just do it again. Or I could really stop and say, you're right, I'm never going to forget this lesson. I'll pass that on to you. That's how useless drama is, right? We all are going to do that out of our ego child's mind. It's the child going, oh, now's the time for growing up. Number 3, we have to get over the issue of being right. We have to get over the issue of being right. We have to be right. Why do you have to be right? You have to be right to prove your worth, and you got some work to do on yourself to show that you are worthy, whether you're right or not. I think it's really important spiritually that you're willing to be wrong. That almost assures you're going to be right, by the way. But not, I've got to be right because I have no value if I'm not right. I have to be right because, I've got to prove that I can take care of myself and other people. I've got to be right because my life depends on it in some emotional way. Look, you're here. We're here to be right and wrong. We're here to know and not know. We're here to keep learning, growing. We're here to recognize ourselves as a resource. We're here to learn about our talents, gifts, and abilities. We're here to apply them. We're here to love and be loved. Don't think you have to be right. That needs to go in the garbage. And so much of that is connected to the little narcissists we are, trying to prove something we haven't even acknowledged to ourselves yet, right? That we don't think we're valuable unless we are right. But what is right anyway? I happen to believe that everybody's right. I believe everybody in the world is right because somebody believes it. Now, let's move on from that and find out who you really are. And let's have you think, do, say, and feel the things on the right level because they're right in God for you. Okay. Number 4, you have to learn to make an effort. In this world, it takes energy. If you're hiding, if you're burying your energy, if you are not allowing your energy to flourish, if you're not allowing yourself to move, guys, you're actually not in alignment with the highest self. The highest self is movement. Mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual movement. Mental movement, think new thoughts. Emotional movement, feel new feelings. Learn about yourself. Take a dive. Find out what's down there. Do some things physically that you've never done before. Take some classes. Learn some new things. Spiritually, do some sort of consciousness work on yourself. Learn about how the energy works. Right? Make an effort. Number 5. A sister issue. Make an effort in your own behalf. On your own behalf. You are the one that is your only investment. You, your talents, your gifts and abilities. And if you don't know what those are, by God, you haven't looked down there because they're there. They're not like anybody else's because your life is unique. Your energy is unique. Your perspective is unique. It's interesting because when we are in the ego child's mind, when we are in that child thing that most of us are in for a long time, well into our adulthood, if we don't die holding on to it, all the work we do, we tell ourselves is so unique. And you know what? It's not. It's not. You haven't begun to use your potential, which is that highest energy of God through you, where your work is truly unique. That's where divine inspiration comes. You may have flashes of it in the ego child's mind. The highest self is where you're really going to contribute. I work with a lot of artists, musicians, all sorts of artists. And they say, am I still going to be good? Am I still going to be able to play music? Well, and it's like, you're going to be playing better than ever, but you're going to switch minds. It's interesting because I've worked with actors for years, used to be one. I guess I still am. But energy, an energy system on peak performance certainly came out of all my work as an actor. And it's interesting because I would have, and I had an acting school for a long time in Atlanta. People would learn their parts. They would learn their script, right? And I'd put them in front of the camera when they were nervous, right? Because here they are, they have to perform. And they couldn't remember their lines because they weren't in their highest self. They had just learned it in their mental body. And the mental body's slow, and when push comes to serve and you're in another energy level, those lines were not learned in that energy level. So you don't know something until you know it mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. Same thing is true for consciousness. You can talk about these things. We can talk about these things till the cows come home. You can hold them in your mental body. That's great. You don't have to do anything in that mental body, but think, right? You don't have to put your life on the line for it. You don't have to say, this is what I know, that how the energy works, and by God, I'm going to live my life according to that. Ego child's mind says, oh, you'll be disappointed. You never get what you want, right? Yeah, that's familiar. Guys, challenge yourself. That's just know God on every level of your being, and this is a living God and a living energy that you can use. You can't use my energy for this. You can't use nature's energy for this, although we can appreciate nature. You can't use the church's God for this. All of those are part of the oneness of God. That's wonderful. But the one you can use is the one you are. And if you don't know that God, if you don't know who that is and how it works, you're not as effective as you want to be. Now, that's actually the good news, because you can change it all. Now, this is a series that we're doing right now. We're going to talk about how to work the energy in minute detail. But I'm telling you in this first episode, what I think has been wrong all along, and why most people can't work this on very subtle levels. Okay? There's more information in the book, but I'm going to tell you what I have been seeing in my world, all right? And what clients come in with and what they need to be reminded of. So that's why you're getting the benefit of this talk. Number 6, I've only got 5 more minutes. Let's see if I can do this 6 more minutes. Number 6. You've got to find your way to the belief that everything works for your good. I don't think you can possibly know that until we get certain things out of the way. I don't think you can know that if you still have the belief that nobody loves me, you don't care about me, and God doesn't care about me, and I don't care about myself, and I never get what I want. How are you going to get to the fact that everything works for my good? Well, I'll tell you how. It's just an energy strata. Here's an energy strata right here. All right? It's a level of energy. This is just a silly little graphic that I'm saying. Let's say it's just right up here, a couple of inches high. All right? Now, there's another one under that, and another one under that, and another one under that, and another one under that. You know, you've heard this is like peeling back the layers of an onion. It is like that. You know, there are stratas beyond strategies. There's truths beyond truths. That's why God is an infinite and ever expanding set of truth is always in motion. You know, believe it or not, there's a strata where there's a peace beyond all understanding. Wouldn't it be nice if you can get there in this life? Soon. After doing some work on yourself and removing all the clutter and bull, all the things that aren't true that you have learned, so that you can go to the absolute truth. There's a living God right there in you, and it's energy, and you can work that energy and have a lovely life full of good works, loving and being loved, using your talents, gifts, and abilities. Number 7, you are going to have to learn to have a different relationship with pain and, by the way, with anxiety. These things are part of the human makeup, all right? I'm not saying that human beings always have to be in pain, and I'm not saying human beings always have to be in anxiety. I'm saying that they are signposts that are saying, look within, find out what this is about, follow this down. That's what they're there for. But if you're afraid of these things, you see, you push them away. It's the mirror thing again, isn't it? I just won't look in that mirror. I'll try to entertain myself with other things. I'll try to distract myself instead of really seeing what there is to be fixed. It's a great thing for you to come in and tell me you're in pain, or a great thing for you to come into your session and saying, I am anxious all the time. All that tells me is this: what are you doing that's not in keeping with the highest self that we've got to look at mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually? Let's get yourself in line for that. Let's go back to your childhood and find out who believed those things too. Let's talk about your childhood experiences and find out why you did that. Let's go all the way back to the womb where you don't even remember things. And let's root out the old chemicals and the old energy so you can believe something else now. It's all energy, therefore it's all movable. Don't you understand? This is not something you have to adjust around. This is knowledge and wisdom that you'll have inside forever, but you don't have to live according to what you did when you were a kid. You have many more options in the higher self that never occur to you. Never once occur to you if you're in the child's mind, because this is a knee-jerk reaction. When you're in the child's mind, you're going to just do what you always have done. And this is about waking up now, isn't it? That's why the road to enlightenment, it is awareness, consciousness, and enlightenment. We have to become aware of these things. And then we have to address
90
them.
seconds.
Then we have to address them. And then if you go far enough, how great can you be? Guys, I suppose I'm going to stop right there. We've got so much more to say about creating the life you want. Next week, we're going to be talking about how to do it all, okay? And, but we're going to stop right there and come back next week. Guys, I want to thank you so much for supporting this show, for listening.
60 seconds.
There are plenty of shows on a variety of subjects for you to hear on Facebook Live and on YouTube and on Blog Talk Radio. Please go back and listen to some of these other shows as well. We are trying to address everything here, and it's hard in 90 minutes, isn't it? Because here I am running over again. Next week, we're going to be talking about creating the life you want, part 2. Okay? So please tell your friends and get this word around on social media and by word of mouth. That means the world. Thank you for the hearts, dear heart. I love you too. You're the reason we're doing all this. Come on, guys. The world needs you. God loves you through you. So you find out who God is. Okay? And I'll be here next week. Want to hear all about it? Take care of your sweet selves. God bless you.
10 seconds.
All right. I hear you. 10 seconds. I'm finishing now. Bye.